Chapter 1: Hijacking of Islam. This plan got its first breakthrough when an army of Muslims left Medina to conquer Egypt and Syria. The leadership of this army was presented to Abu Sufyan's elder son Yazid, the last prophet of Allah. Hazrat Muhammad, who had been illuminating the darkness for 63 years at last, left this world on 28 Safar 11 Hijri. With his demise, the people who lived in darkness again started going about their ways which they were following before him, just like the people who had returned to their ways when Hazrat Musa stayed for a bit longer on the mountain. This time Samri had not made a gold calf, but he had used opposition, worldliness, ignorance, jealousy and revenge in its place. This time he didn't have the dust from under Jibril horse's feet, but dust from under the feet of Abu Turab. With the passage of time, Islamic rules and regulations were being tampered with. Quranic teachings were altered according to people's needs. Allegiances were broken. It was prohibited to recite Prophet's sayings. Orders of Allah were left out. All the Islamic duties became void. Truth was being silenced forcibly. Truth was proclaimed to be false. Testimonies were rejected. Treaties were shredded. Oaths were forgotten. Wills changed. Podium became bereft of the flags. Prophet's friends were shunned from the city. Enemies of Islam were made prosperous. The true followers were made to live a life of gypsy, whereas non-believers erected palaces in the city. Comes became fodder. Taxes, the property of the rulers. Witnesses were murdered. Inheritors were disavowed and the usurpers gained strength. Ignorance ruled over knowledge. Dumb started speaking. People started calling the tyrant as victim and the victim a tyrant. Non-believers as believers and vice versa. Faithful as rebels and rebels as faithful. The house of the Prophet was surrounded, its door broken. Truth became blood-stained. The flower of the Prophet's garden died even before coming in this world. The teachings of Islam became a tale of the past, and the way of life from the Dark Ages again started being implemented. Then, one day they chained Islam. The power-hungry army, chanting Allah Akbar, left Medina to desecrate neighboring lands. The technique to spread Islam by force was taught to the kings of Arab by the Sufyani think tank. There was no other way by which they could present this religion of peace and tranquility, forgiveness and acceptance, patience and forbearance, and this sacred plan of betterment of humanity as a symbol of barbarism and terrorism. To attain the goal, they had decided to use the name of Islam and its motto. They were waiting eagerly to eliminate Islamic teachings to take power themselves, but these teachings were not easy to destroy. As still the people standing up against evil were alive, there were still people who were ready to identify the truth. As majority of the Muslims loved their religion, the Sufyanis still had to wait. They had to wait for a generation to pass so that the memories fade out and strengths give way, and when they demolish the pillars of Sakhalin, no one would be there to stop them. As there was still time for them to gain power, they started laying down strategies for the future. Their main target was how to hijack Islam and where to take it. History was repeating itself. After the demise of Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ishmael and before the last prophet, these idol worshippers had filled the house of Allah with statues made of wood and stone so that they could con people in the name of religion. They, themselves too, knew the reality about these statues, but the common people were easily conned for religion, and it was easy to milk money out of their pockets and strengthen their rule over them. These 360 idols were necessary to get money from the people to establish and strengthen their hold on them. The Sufyanis were implementing the same old formula, but this time they had to face two barriers, namely the Quran and Ahlul-Bayt. Both of them collectively were called as Saklan by the Prophet in his last address, and there were 140,000 Muslims who had witnessed this event. The Prophet of Allah, nearly 70 days ahead of his demise, on 18 inches of Zilhaj at Ghadir, had announced by Allah's orders Ali ibn Abi Talib as his successor and caliph. After that the Prophet ordered in a loud voice, "Whoever is present here today and listening to me, he should relay this information to those who are not here." The dreamed Sufyanis and the power-hungry Arabs were dreaming, by taking strength from Islam and forming their own government, got a breakthrough in 13 Hijri. An army left Medina marching towards a Christian settlement, i.e. Syria, comprising 7,000 men, leadership of which was awarded to Abu Sufyan's son Yazid. Khalid bin Walid joined his forces of 9,000 men from Kufa with this army. Abu Sufyan's second son, Muawiyah, was also in the army of Medina as a substitute head. Before leaving, they had decided about the fact that who will rule which region. The plan of Sufyanis was now taking shape in reality. It was difficult to implement their plan in Hejaz due to many factors. As it was not easy to deface Islam in that region, but in a far-off place like Syria it was no more difficult. The governor of the central government and the new governor of Syria, Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan, quickly managed his new government. They gathered all the illiterate, barbaric and ignorant Arabs and formed a disciplined army. Military intelligence. New police departments were formed and were given more powers. Secret agencies also started working. Special units were formed to kill their opponents in secret, defaming and defacing them, and character building of those who could be helpful to them. Media managers were appointed to publicize their victories as Islam's victory and to emotionally blackmail the ignorant Muslims. Poets, writers, authors, intellectuals and quick-witted religious leaders were gathered to stand against the Ahlul-Bayt. The 18 Zilhaj of 35 inches Hijri brought the murder of Hazrat Usman, the caliph, who was murdered by the rebels who had surrounded his palace for many weeks. The secret agents of Syria were working in a large number at that time in Medina. But as soon as the last news reached the governor of Syria, he announced that the whole country would mourn the caliph's death. The secret agencies in Medina were given new instructions, and Hazrat Usman's blood-stained shirt and the Quran and his wife's fingers were sent to Syria through the secret services agencies in a few days. The time the Sufyanis were waiting for to take the central government under their own hands had arrived. According to their plan, they started blaming the next caliph Hazrat Ali for the murder of Hazrat Usman. This sordid affair of Hazrat Usman's murder and blaming Hazrat Ali for it shattered the Muslim Brotherhood and weakened the nation. When all the Muslims became against Hazrat Ali, the process of cursing Hazrat Ali in mosques started. In a few days it also came to that Hazrat Ali, the caliph, was started being branded as kafir, and it became part of the duties of the orators to curse Hazrat Ali after every namaz. This propaganda went ahead so much that in the 40th Hijri, when Hazrat Ali was murdered in a mosque and this news reached Syria, the people there were really surprised at the fact that what was Hazrat Ali doing in the mosque, as they thought that Hazrat Ali had no relation with Islam. After Imam Ali's death, Sufyani's agents entered the army of Imam Hassan and made him helpless. 2. The governor of Syria had ordered that poison to be brought from Rome and sent it to Medina through Marwan to Imam Hassan's wife Jada binti Ashes along with a lot of money. Jada binti Ashes poisoned Imam Hassan for a promise to be married to Yazid, son of the governor of Syria. After that, the whole Muslim empire came under the rule of the Sufyanis. This plot had been implemented very quickly. The enemies of Islam were running Islamic government. In this way, Islam was hijacked and taken to the torture cells of Damascus, capital city of Syria and the base camp of the Sufyanis that was established in Damascus. Soon engulfed the whole country. The Prophet's younger grandson Hussein had been witnessing all these conditions since his childhood. Imam Hussein had already taken the charge as Imam 10 years earlier, and his age was 56 years, after the martyrdom of Imam Hassan a.s. Imam Hussein had spent these 10 years with great patience. When in 60 inches Hijri Yazid became the king, he could not follow the precautions like his ancestors. The kind of talks his ancestors used to hold in only among the trusted companions. Yazid started saying those in public. Yazid announced the aims his ancestors had been hiding till now in front of the entire court. Also, he ordered the governor of Medina to ask for allegiance bayat from Hussein ibn Ali, and if he refuses, behead him instantly. This was the time Hussein ibn Ali was waiting for since the past 10 years with great patience. End of chapter 1.